The Arena Vault system has now been in Star Wars Hunters for a couple of days now, and I'll be completely honest, I am not a fan of it whatsoever, because it is essentially gambling and it's a whole loot box thing, and as someone who played Star Wars Battlefront 2 at launch, I've had my fair share of loot box controversies. Obviously this one isn't pay to win at all, it is just cosmetic only, so actually this is just some mobile game gimmick that a lot of games do, but just because other games do it doesn't mean this game should. And obviously I do want Star Wars Hunters to make money, I want this game to be successful. I've had an absolute blast covering it here on the channel and it's one of my favourite games to play right now. So if this whole system ultimately helps the game get an extra 2 to 3 years of content support, then honestly fair enough, because it at least helps the game. But I personally am really not a fan of loot boxes, especially when they cost so much money. Each of these vaults cost a grand total of about 7,000 to 8,000 crystals each, which means that if you started at 0 crystals and you wanted to guarantee getting every single item, you'd have to spend £200 worth of crystals just to be able to get absolutely everything in all 3 vaults, which is an absolutely absurd amount of money, especially when it's so easily accessible to children. So that's a big thing that I don't like about it, because it's such an accessible game to children. They could get absolutely silly with their parents' money if it is connected to an account, or if they steal their parents' credit card and spend that money. It's easily doable, and I think the higher ups at Zynga who made the decision probably are fully aware of that and went with it anyway, because ultimately they only care about money. But the argument, I suppose, is that many other games do it quite a bit worse. Valorant itself, back in the day, for one bundle of cosmetics, which was like 4 or 5 items maybe, I think was about £80, which is just ridiculous. And I think it's still very much like that now, but do correct me if I'm wrong, Valorant players, it's not a game I've played in a few years now. And I think that is significantly worse, honestly, but it doesn't detract from the fact that I really don't like this Arena Vault system, especially because the cosmetics locked in them are, in my opinion, really good. I'm a big fan of the Icy Sith, Reeve, and the Medical Jedi for J3 especially. Now thankfully the Medical Jedi doesn't seem to be Arena Vault exclusive, so he might then release in the future in the store, but certainly the Frozen Sith Vault and Disguised Trooper Vault have exclusive content there, so to get them you ultimately do have to spend that money, which I just think is a real shame. Now when I first saw the Arena Vault system I was actually pretty pissed off, but after seeing the overall community reaction to it and further discussions with friends in the community, it probably honestly isn't that bad. Like, it is just cosmetic only, so you can easily ignore it. There are plenty of other cosmetics in the store that are great, and everything else in Season 3 in terms of content is just fantastic in my opinion. The new map's a lot of fun, Pillbush is a lot of fun, the mastery system is great, and the Arena Pass is pretty solid as well. So there really is a lot to love about this update. And in terms of community reaction, I think there are quite a few people who do feel as I do, in that it's really not good to see and it just shouldn't have happened. But I saw a poll on the Discord server yesterday or 2 days ago, and as of me recording this, it's got 42 votes right now, so in all fairness, not a lot. 36% of people think it's bad, but then a quarter of people think it's actually a good system, and the remaining 40% are a bit mixed or don't really care about it. So really, I'm actually outnumbered in thinking it's bad, but like I said, you can ignore it. I'm not happy that it's in the game, and I really do hope that it does get removed at some point, maybe after this season, because I think it is bad for the reputation of the game, especially from people outside of the community as well. For people who don't really know this game, if the first thing they see is loot boxes in Star Wars Hunters, they're just immediately going to clock out and probably just slate the game for having loot boxes in 2024 and all that stuff, and they'll make a massive fuss about it, which I don't blame them for, because I really don't like loot boxes, especially ones that cost so much. If it was cheaper, then I actually wouldn't really mind it. Like, if everything in these vaults cost about 3,500 crystals, like some of the bigger bundles, or even 4,000, I actually don't think I'd mind that much, because that's something that's already in the game already. And another thing to top it all off with the Arena Vaults is that they do have odds on each item, but the best rewards, the skins, are stupidly low, and it tailors the entire vault experience so that 99% of the time the skin will be the very last thing you unlock. And that's one of the things I do find the most shameful. Obviously, in the context of all of this stuff, it absolutely makes sense, and I fully understand why they've done it. It just kind of hurts to see it in a Star Wars game once again, following the backlash of Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm really surprised to see it, honestly, and I think this is very much a case of Zynga higher-ups wanting more cash in the bank, because I genuinely think the day-to-day developers who work on this day in, day out really wouldn't have wanted to implement something like this. So if you are also annoyed by this system, as I am, do speak up about it, but please do it in a respectful manner, and don't target any hate towards the developers or to the marketing team, community managers, whatever. Ultimately, they just have a job to do. They are listening to their bosses, who are listening to their bosses, and so on. So I really don't think this is the developers' fault. It is just the corporate people up at the top. But to sum it all up, personally, I'm really not a fan of the Vault system, but with that being said, I am honestly going to do my best to just try and ignore it. I don't have to make use of it. It's a shame and it sucks that I'm not really going to be able to get these cosmetics without having to fork out a huge amount of cash. But it is just a game at the end of the day. There is plenty of great stuff in this season, which I'll be making plenty of videos about in the coming weeks. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel to stay fully up to date with all things Star Wars Hunters, and let me know what you think about this whole Arena Vault system in the comments below. That is it from me today though. Thank you all very much for watching, and may the Force be with you always.